All right, so you're back with us for another deep dive. And this time we're going right into the heart of South Africa and Jayari. We're talking about SASSA Food Parcels. Yeah, you guys sent over a whole mountain of information about this.
Right.
We've been sifting through it, trying to make sense of it, to bring you guys this deep dive into how this really crucial support system actually works,
Yeah.
So today our mission, if you will, is to really get to the bottom of a few key questions. Who can actually get access to these SASSA Food Parcels? What's inside them?
Yeah.
What are people getting? How do you apply for them? And, all the other important aspects of how this whole program functions. And this is really designed for emergency food assistance in South Africa, right?
It is. And a key thing to remember is that SASSA Food Parcels are actually part of a bigger picture. It's this thing called the Social Relief of Distress Program.
Okay, the SRD.
The SRD, yeah, from the South African government.
So it's like an umbrella.
Exactly.
And the food parcels are one piece of it.
Exactly. So if you're in a really tough spot
Okay.
and need some urgent help, the SRD is kind of like the system that kicks in. And these food parcels, well, they're one of the ways they try to help you out.
But they're not like a permanent thing.
You got it.
Right. This isn't like a long-term solution.
Not at all.
It's really for
It's for emergencies.
emergency situations.
Right, for those times when, something unexpected happens and
Yeah.
bam, suddenly you can't afford to put food on the table.
Yeah.
That's where these parcels come in.
And we had that example, remember, from the stuff you said.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like someone losing their job out of the blue.
Right, completely out of the blue.
Then they do.
They've got kids to feed.
No income, no way to buy food.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, but it happens. And that's precisely when these food parcels are supposed to step in.
They step in,
Yeah.
provide that immediate relief.
Exactly.
So I guess the first big question is, who actually qualifies for this?
Yeah, who can get this help?
Right, because it's not just for anybody. It's not, no.
There are specific criteria, right?
There are, and from the documents you sent, we can see those criteria pretty clearly laid out.
Okay, so first and foremost, what's the big one?
The most obvious one, no income.
No income.
Zero, zilch. You've lost your job. You got nothing coming in. That's a pretty clear sign you might qualify.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Okay.
But it's not just about losing a job.
Okay.
There are other situations, too.
Like what?
Like, what if you've applied for a regular SASSA grant,
Oh, right.
but you're still waiting for it to get approved?
So they're in the system,
You got it.
but haven't started getting the regular help yet.
Exactly. Those waiting periods can be tough.
Yeah.
So the food parcels can kind of help you bridge that gap.
Tide them over until the
Well-
longer-term support kicks in.
Exactly. Keep you going while you wait for the more permanent help.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you got folks who've been hit by disaster.
Disasters like,
Floods, fires, you name it.
okay, so real emergencies.
Those sudden shocks, like you were talking about before.
When everything gets turned upside down,
Yeah.
through no fault of their own.
Absolutely. So your home's destroyed, you've lost everything. Of course you need help, and these food parcels are designed to be there for you.
So that makes sense.
What else? Oh, if you're medically unable to work.
Okay, so you can't earn an income.
Can't earn an income, no.
Yeah.
That's another situation where you might qualify.
Or if there's just no family support
Right. No family, no friends,
going to turn to.
nobody who can help you out.
Wow, that's really tough.
It is, and it seems like they're really trying to catch those cases where people are completely isolated,
Yeah, they're really on their own.
No safety net whatsoever.
Yeah.
And of course, if the main breadwinner in the family passes away.
The person who earned most of the income.
Exactly. That can be devastating for a family.
Yeah.
Suddenly, there's no money coming in, and they need help fast.
And then there's that last one, remember, that really stood out.
Oh, yeah. The child heading a household.
A child over 16
Over 16, yeah, but still a child.
having to be the adult.
Exactly. Way too young for that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, that's a huge burden.
It is, and thankfully the system recognizes that and tries to offer some support.
Yeah, but there was that thing, too, that important tip they kept highlighting
Oh, right.
about needing to prove your situation.
You don't just say, I need help, and that's it.
Yeah, it's not enough.
You got to back it up with some proof.
And what kind of proof are we talking about?
Well, the documents didn't give like a super detailed list, but it definitely implies you need some kind of documentation.
Okay, like what?
Like, if you're unemployed, you might need proof of that.
Right, like a letter from your previous employer or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Hmm.
Or maybe medical certificates if you can't work.
Okay.
Police reports if there's been a disaster.
Oh, right, to show that your home was actually affected.
Exactly. And if the breadwinner passed away, you'd need a death certificate, obviously. And sometimes you might need what's called an affidavit.
An affidavit.
Yeah, it's basically a sworn statement.
So you're officially stating that what you're saying is true.
Exactly.
Like under oath.
So if you're saying there's no family support,
Okay.
you might need an affidavit explaining why.
So it's not enough to just say it. You need to explain it and have that statement be official.
Exactly. They want to make sure the help goes to the people who really need it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about what's actually inside these SASSA food parcels.
Yeah. What are people getting when they receive one?
Well, based on the information you provided, it seems like they focus on the essentials, the things you really need to get by.
Okay, like what? Give us some specifics.
So you're talking maize meal, rice.
Okay, the staples
Yeah, the core ingredients for lots of meal.
to keep you full and give you energy.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Then you'll likely find some tinned fish or maybe some canned meat.
So they're getting some protein in there?
You gotta have that protein to stay healthy.
Right.
And of course, some cooking oil, some sugar,
Okay.
and usually beans or lentils too.
So that's more protein.
More protein and fiber. Really filling and nutritious.
So they're really thinking about the basics to put together. Basic meals.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else in there?
You'll usually find some tea bags, some salt,
Okay.
and sometimes even a bit of soap.
Oh, so they're covering some basic hygiene as well.
Yeah, it's not just about food.
Right. It's
Okay.
about
Yeah.
those essential everyday needs.
Exactly.
And the material you sent mentioned that a family of 4, for example,
Yeah.
could probably get about 2 to 3 weeks worth of food
2 to 3 weeks, yeah.
from one of these parcels.
That's a decent amount of time
It is. It gives you some breathing room to sort things out.
to get back on your feet.
Yeah.
It's not a long-term fix, but it buys you some time.
Yeah, to figure out a more permanent solution.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of time frames,
Yeah.
how long does this food relief actually last?
Well, from what we've seen in the information you provided, it seems like it's a temporary measure,
Okay.
as it should be, right? It's for those urgent situations.
Yeah.
So typically, you can get this help for up to 3 months.
3 months.
That's the standard period. But there's a catch.
the catch.
Well, not really a catch, but there's a possibility of getting an extension
Extension.
for another 3 months.
Okay, so potentially up to 6 months.
If your situation hasn't improved after those first 3 months and you still meet the criteria for urgent need, then you can apply for an extension.
So they're not just cutting people off after 3 months.
No, not at all.
If the situation is still dire, they could get more help.
Exactly. But it's not automatic. You got to prove you still need it.
You got to show that you're still in that urgent situation.
Exactly. They want to be sure the resources are going to those who need them most.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's say someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, I need this help.
This sounds like me.
What do they actually do?
How do they get the ball rolling?
Yeah. What's the process?
Well, first things first, they need to head to their nearest SASSA office.
Okay, so a physical visit
Physical visit, yeah.
is usually required.
And they need to bring some documents with them.
All right, what kind of documents are we talking about?
Their ID, of course.
To prove who they are.
Exactly. And some proof of their lack of income.
Oh, right, like we were talking about earlier.
Could be an affidavit if they don't have anything official.
Okay, so they've got those basics.
And remember, if the main breadwinner has passed away,
Yeah,
they'll need a death certificate.
and potentially an affidavit explaining their specific situation.
Exactly. It all depends on the circumstances, right?
Right.
But the key is you got to back up your claim.
Show that you meet
Yeah.
the criteria.
Absolutely.
So they get to the SASSA office, they got their documents. What happens next?
Well, they'll need to fill out an application form.
A SASSA form.
SASSA form, yeah, they provide it right there.
And that's just basic information about them.
Basic info, their situation, why they need help, all that stuff.
Okay, so they fill that out.
And then sometimes,
Sometimes.
yeah, it's not always the case, but sometimes they might do some verification like,
They might actually visit your home.
okay, a home visit
Yeah, to see what your living situation is like.
to confirm that
Yep.
what you're saying is actually true.
Exactly. Or they might even contact your neighbors.
To ask about you.
Yeah, to double check the information.
Wow, so it's pretty thorough.
It can be, yeah. But it's all about making sure the help goes where it's needed most.
Yeah, it's about preventing fraud. and making sure the system isn't abused.
Exactly. They want to be fair to everyone.
Now, we did talk about emergencies
Oh,
and how sometimes the application process might be a little different in those situations.
So if it's a really big emergency, like a massive flood affecting a whole region, they might set up special call centers.
Okay, so you can call in.
Call in, yeah.
Instead of going to a physical office. Exactly. Or they might even have online application portals.
Oh, wow. So you could apply from your phone.
If you have access to the internet, yeah.
That's really convenient.
It is, but again, it depends on the situation.
It's for those, really, big emergencies.
Exactly.
But normally it's the SAS office.
Your local SAS office, yeah.
Okay. Now, we've talked about the food parcels themselves.
Right.
But do they ever give vouchers instead?
Sometimes they do.
Vouchers?
Yeah, like you'd use at a grocery store.
Instead of the actual physical food parcel?
Oh, exactly. It gives people a bit more choice, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they can pick out what they need.
So instead of just getting whatever's in the parcel, they can actually buy what they want.
What their family prefers, yeah. Maybe things they need that aren't in the standard parcels.
Like dietary restrictions or something.
So, yeah, or maybe baby food.
Oh, right.
If they have a little one.
That's a good point.
And you remember after those floods in KwaZulu-Natal, they were giving out those R700 vouchers. Oh, right.
Instead of the food parcels.
So people could get whatever they needed most.
Exactly. It was a much more flexible approach.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think it's a really good example of how vouchers can be a great way to help.
Yeah, especially in those specific circumstances.
Yeah.
Now, this might seem like a silly question, but can everyone who's poor in South Africa just automatically get a food parcel?
That's a good question, and it's important to clarify. Just being poor, unfortunately, isn't enough to qualify.
You need to be in a specific situation.
I need to be facing urgent, temporary distress.
Yeah, that's the key.
It's not just about low income.
It's about a sudden crisis.
A sudden crisis, yeah.
Yeah.
That's left you unable to buy food.
So you might be struggling financially, but if you haven't had that sudden shock, you might not qualify for this specific type of help.
The documents give a good example.
Okay.
Imagine someone who has a job. Maybe they don't earn a lot, but they're getting by.
They're managing.
Now, they wouldn't automatically qualify for a food parcel. Right.
But what if a disaster hits?
Okay.
Like their home gets destroyed in a fire.
They lose their belongings, their food.
Everything.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're in that urgent crisis.
And then they would qualify.
Then they would qualify, yeah.
So it's about that sudden change in circumstances.
Yeah.
That makes it impossible to afford food.
Exactly. It's for those moments when your life gets turned upside down and you need immediate help.
Now, what happens if someone gets the food relief for the 3 months,
Oh, okay.
but their situation's still bad?
They're still struggling.
Can they reapply
They can for help.
for more help? Yeah. Okay, so there's a possibility of getting more assistance
If you still need it.
if the crisis hasn't passed.
But, and this is important, it's not a guarantee.
Okay.
You can't just assume you'll get an extension.
You have to go through the process again.
You got to reapply.
Yeah.
And prove you still meet the criteria.
You got to show
Yeah.
that you're still in that urgent situation.
That the distress is ongoing.
Yeah.
They're not just going to hand out extensions willy-nilly.
No. The material we got has some really important warnings, too.
Oh, yeah. Some big red flags to watch out for.
Yeah, about potential challenges and scams. What's the biggest thing people need to be aware of?
The number one thing, SASSA food parcels are free.
Free?
Absolutely free.
Okay.
You should never...
Not ever have to pay anyone to get one.
If someone asks for money
Yeah.
for a food parcel, walk away.
It's a scam.
It's a scam, 100%.
And sadly, people in tough situations
Yeah.
can be
Easy targets.
vulnerable
Yeah.
for these kinds of things.
People trying to take advantage.
So that's a really important warning.
It is. Be very, very careful out there.
What else do we need to be careful of?
Always, always.
Oh, yeah.
Supply through official SASSA channels.
So that means going to a SASSA office.
A physical office, yeah. Or using those official emergency methods.
If they're active.
If they're activated, exactly. Don't trust anyone who says they're working with SASSA, but they're operating outside of those official channels.
Yeah, that's a big red flag.
Huge red flag.
If they're asking for money or they're not part of the official system, walk away.
Walk away, report them.
And what if someone thinks they've encountered
Yeah.
something fishy,
Someone shady, yeah.
like a scam or some kind of corruption?
What should they do?
Report it
Report it immediately.
to the authorities.
Don't hesitate. It's important to protect yourself and protect others who might be vulnerable.
So speak up.
Speak up, yeah. Don't let these people get away with it.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive, what are the key things we want our listeners to remember about SASSA Food Parcels?
Okay, so big picture.
Yeah.
SASSA Food Parcels are a temporary help.
Okay.
They're for people facing a sudden crisis.
A sudden crisis that leaves them unable to afford food.
Right.
You got to prove you need it. You
Yeah.
got to go through the proper channels.
And it's all free.
No paying anyone.
No paying, no shortcuts.
And they might give vouchers instead of parcels.
In some cases, yeah.
And you can reapply for more help if you still need it. But it's not automatic.
You got to prove your need again.
Okay. And there was that last tip
Oh, yeah, the practical tip.
that I thought was really good.
Keep copies of all your documents.
All the documents you submit.
Everything.
Okay.
And follow up with your local SASSA office if you haven't heard back.
After a reasonable time.
Don't just sit and wait.
Be proactive.
Be proactive, yeah.
So we've talked about all this. But it makes me think, these food parcels, they're for emergencies, right? Short-term help. But what about the bigger picture?
The root causes of food insecurity.
What other kinds of support do you think are needed to really tackle this issue?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Because these food parcels, they're a lifeline, but they don't solve the underlying problems.
We need to think about long-term solutions.
Long-term, sustainable solutions, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we need to be looking at things like skills development.
Okay, helping people get jobs.
Jobs, yeah. Helping people become more employable so they can support themselves and their families.
Well.
We need to support local food production.
Okay, so people can access fresh, affordable food.
Exactly, right, in their communities.
And I guess we need better social safety nets overall.
Yeah, stronger, more comprehensive.
To catch people before they fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
It's not just about
Emergency help.
It's about preventing those emergencies in the first place.
It's about creating a system where everyone has access